It's been like, Halima, the perfect bad storm for them in Europe, right? You know, they crushed coal. Everybody wanted that. That's good. The gas, though, not flowing as much from Russia. Wind energy just hasn't produced as much as they had hoped. I'm telling you, we talk about it when these prices roll over and people in the streets start to see their bills double or triple. This is going to be a big geopolitical story this winter, especially if it's cold.
I mean, absolutely. You had, Biden's special envoy for energy, Amos Hochstein, out in the last couple of weeks really warning that this could be a huge political health issue in Europe, warning that people essentially could be freezing. I mean, the real question is, if this is a cold winter and Russia is potentially tapped out in terms of additional supplies, because that has been the debate, because there has been lower Russian flows into Europe. Has it been because the Russians have been deliberately holding back supply, tried to force the German regulator to immediately approve Nord Stream 2? Or are they simply potentially tapped out in terms of additional volume they can bring to the market now? And people are tending to think it might be the latter, which means if we have a cold winter, there might not be relief for the European consumers, which raises a whole issue about, will we see a comeback of coal potentially as we are heading into this climate summit where everyone is very focused on these really aggressive net zero goals?
I mean, that's the irony. And we're going to talk about coal in just a second because coal prices have soared as well. I know it sounds bizarre to say that in 2021, but let's go back to the previous thing, because a lot of our viewers, they hear Nord Stream 2 and maybe they're sort of familiar with it. Talk to us a little more about this. This is a huge new pipeline that is going to literally be another sort of umbilical cord for natural gas from Russia to Germany. The pipeline is done. The Germans are kind of hemming and hawing. It does feel like that, I'm not saying Vladimir Putin may or may not do something like this, but, let's reduce our supplies until you get that pipeline okayed. The timing is interesting.
The timing is very interesting. I mean, this has been a very, very big political issue. This is a pipeline that will bypass Ukraine and bringing Russian gas right to the key consumers like Germany. This has been something that many people in the United States Congress have vociferously opposed, saying it's essentially a Russian influence project to economically crush Ukraine. It will further Europe's dependence on Russian gas. And, people thought that President Biden would be opposed to this as well when he came into office, but has recently said, look, it's a fait accompli. The Germans put a lot of pressure, Angela Merkel, on President Biden and his team to approve this pipeline, to essentially say, we're not going to impose sanctions. But now it's being held up potentially by a German regulator. And so there is a question, did the Russian government withhold supplies in order to force the regulator's hand? But again, you have other leading analysts like Oxford Energy Institute out saying this week that even if Nord Stream 2 is completed, and ready to go tomorrow and the regulator signs off, there simply isn't enough additional Russian gas at the moment to meet demand, given where we are in terms of historically low inventories in Europe, issues about, demand improving because of the economic reopening. And as you mentioned, you've had the issue on wind. And so we're reigniting the whole debate over renewables. And can you move to renewables this quickly if you do not have sufficient backups to deal with intermittency?
Yeah, and that's the reality of life. And I know it's a very uncomfortable thing for people to hear as we talk about reducing global emissions, cutting climate change. But if you're a middle-class worker or a working-class worker in, Frankfurt or Madrid, and you don't have heat in the winter, or you don't have the heat you want, you don't have power, like you're doing laundry at midnight, which they're doing in Spain right now because their power costs, they're on a monthly reset, they're already feeling it. You want to save the planet, but you're more worried about saving your family in the short term, and we're actually seeing coal prices move back higher. It seems insane.
I mean, this is really, I think, going to be the big challenge as we talk about, governments putting all hands on deck to try to, speed along this energy transition. I mean, even look at the situation in this country, Brian. You had, President Biden coming in, basically saying we're back into Paris, killing Keystone XL. And yet, what has he done this summer? He's asked for more oil from OPEC because he's been concerned about rising gasoline prices domestically here. And so you have the IEA out, basically saying we need more Russian gas, which some people are saying it's quite ironic because there was an IEA report that caught a lot of media attention saying that we shouldn't have more oil and gas production in order to meet these net zero goals. So This is going to be a real challenge is what do you do in the near term when you don't have sufficient renewables to provide coverage that people need in terms of their daily energy use?
Well, listen, policies are not made by people that are ever going to have a problem turning on the heat. I mean, talk to a blue-collar worker in Brainerd, Minnesota, or Berlin, Germany, and, they might tell you how they think. That aside, let's switch gears a little bit here, Halima. We don't talk to you enough about gold, and people think, oh, there's Halima, and she knows all about energy. Yeah. You also talk about gold as well. Your latest note, always a must-read, by the way, as well. With everything going on, why aren't we seeing a little more action in gold? And can we use it to heat our home?
I think this is going to be something we'll be watching. I mean, we have a terrific gold analyst on our team, Chris Looney, who does a coverage on that. But obviously, in terms of gold, everyone's going to be watching, the Fed statements today. And so it remains, a market that is, very, very tied to sentiment around the Fed. So clearly, we've been talking about gas prices, oil prices, but obviously gold will be in focus today with Powell's statements.